Peter, thank you so much for having me today. I have gotten to spend a few minutes looking around and your stuff is just gorgeous. Let's start at the beginning. When did you fall in love with art?
Well, I've grown up in an artistic environment, so it's kind of the only, to be honest, it's the only thing I've ever known. My father's an artist, and I've grown up in the glass studio for most of my life. And so, I would say it kind of came in by birth, really.
For those who don't know, the family business is stained glass.
Yeah, and it's a large-scale stained glass. So,
Right.
church restorations, historic building restorations, new restaurants, those type of things. And so I do that. That's still my full-time job. And then, I do my additional painting and stuff on the side, trying to get at least 20 or 30 hours a week additionally on top of that for my painting.
I'm tired just thinking about that. So I'm assuming that 20 to 30 hours is like necessary for you as a human.
Yeah, my personality kind of takes a downward spiral if I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
But also, the studio is really lenient. Makes it sound negative, but they're really good about actually giving me some of the
flexible.
The studio is very flexible about allowing me to dedicate time when I need to pursue the painting career. In terms of if it's going out of town or going to New York or going to Chicago, they allow me to do that, and so I'm really fortunate in that regard.
So tell me about discovering oils and when that kind of happened and when you realized that was your niche.
Well, actually, going into art school, I didn't intend to be an oil painter. I was actually very intimidated by the history of oils. You read an art history book, and half of it at least is all oil paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just kind of a lot of history that you have to butt up against when you're going into it. But as soon as I took my first oil painting class, I really fell in love with the medium. I fell in love with the freedom. I fell in love with just the ability to really create your own world, your own universe with it.
Mm.
I guess before I fell in love with oil painting, I loved to draw. I would do drawings, and obviously in high school and everything before that. And I'd always grown up with my father going to figure drawing, and there'd be all the figure drawings around the house. Or there was a professor in Fort Wayne, an art professor named George McCullough, who was kind of like my grandfather. And so we'd always be at the house, and there'd always be drawing going on. There would always be this activity taking place. And so that's what I originally, when I first started going to art school for my degree, I originally thought I was going to be a drawing major. And then as soon as I started oil painting, I switched. I was like, this is what I love. And so I wanted to pursue more traditional representational painting. And I don't consider my work heavily traditional just in terms of paint application, color, subject matter, but that's really where I wanted to pursue it. And so, everyone's going in their own direction. Some people want to go abstract, some people want to do this, some people, everyone's going their own direction. So it's really, you work by yourself a lot. Being an artist and a painter means that, you're going to spend most of your time by yourself. It's not like being in a band where you always have a group of people you're working with. It's very solitary.
I'm interested in all of the portrait work you do. Was it at that point in college when everybody was kind of going off in their own direction that you decided on this style more so than abstract, or?
I think human beings are the most fascinating thing on earth that I've ever encountered, because, and especially somebody's face, almost the whole of who they are is enclosed in their face. And when you're spending hours or days working on a portrait or working with a person, anyone can smile and a nice cheesy grin for a snapshot. But when you're working with someone for a long time, you really you can see the stress lines in their eyes, because you can't hide that.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the worry as it comes in here and it leaves this point, the subjects that actually make them happy and the subjects that depress them. So I normally start something from life, because I feel like I really need that energy and the spontaneity that comes from working from a live model. There's a lot of times when I'll have an idea, a pose, a story I want to tell, and it ends up being the model, just working with them, will give a much more naturalistic pose expression than I could set up in my head. And the sketches I've done to start it with, they'll do a better job. And so I feel like I have to work from life to begin with. Then I'll normally kind of go back and forth. I'll use photographs to fill in a lot of the blanks, to get ideas going, have them come back. It's just a back and forth process. And I always finish out from life, I feel.
I look at your pieces and I see so much depth, the color, the shading, and as a non-artist, I don't know how you know how to do that. How much of that is learned and how much of it is just kind of an innate sense?
I mean, I think that there's both definitively go into the process. I mean, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot from looking at other work. You can learn a lot from going to classes. And then I think sometimes you just have to have an open mind as you approach a piece. I mean, especially if you're working from life, you know, with someone like me, if I have some of the beard coming in or anything else, there's going to be blues and greens and different tints that just exist naturally in there. It's not just, okay, here's your generic flesh color. I'm going to add, you know, black and brown and white to it. I mean, there's just a million things that are going on. And I think that if you're open to the idea that it's not your preconceived notion of how a person looks, then you'll make adjustments as you go. I had professors that would say like, hey, look for this. But again, a lot of times, you know, you've always had professors and other people who tell you this advice, and a lot of times it's not until you discover it again yourself that you're like, I've already been told this before. It just took me like re-looking at it and re-examining it before I actually could like, I get it. I hear what you said now.
Yes. How hard is it to capture, it sounds so cheesy, but to capture someone's essence?
I mean, it's difficult, and I can't say I do it every time. There's a lot of portraiture where I feel like, okay, that looks like the person, but it's not really the person. I mean, there's definitely better and worse portraits I've done. I don't know, sometimes you get lucky, I guess, but like, and hopefully the more you do something, the more often you get lucky. But especially too, I think when you work with a person for multiple sittings, multiple sessions, you start to naturally see who the person is, which is what always makes me kind of appreciate when you see some of those classic oil paintings of like Rockefellers or, you know, these people who railroad tycoons, and you knew that they were probably truly brutal people at heart. I mean, they had to be. If you're a railroad tycoon, that doesn't come with a lot of like positive connotation.
Right.
But like, and you look at those portraits and you wonder what they actually saw and how much of that they smoothed over.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. Is it easier to paint someone who is naturally just a more kind of open, gregarious person?
I don't know, I find generally like, if I've got the drawing down and then I can have a conversation with the person, you'll start to see where they naturally fall, like what their natural personality is.
Right.
So sometimes, yeah, you get a feeling that after doing a portrait, you might know the person, at least elements of the person, better than some people who've known them for years, because I mean, how often with a friend do you stare at their face for hours?
Yeah.
Like just like looking at, how are their eyes set? Are they actually really stressed? Are they saying that they're really happy? But you can see like, there's just a constant pressure in the corner of their eyes. Like, it's a unique experience, and it's one I love. I mean, I think that, like I said, I think people are the most fascinating thing in the world, and I think with a face you can read a tremendous amount of a person's story.
Did you see me get very self-conscious?
You're like,
what is he seeing? In addition to portraits, you also travel a lot and have these beautiful sketches. What is it about sketching, especially when you are abroad, that you love so much?
I think that when you sketch something and you're sitting and you're staring at one feature, one monument, doesn't have to be something famous. I mean, a person that you see or just a landscape, anything, you really kind of etch it into your memory. And so for me, like, once I've sketched it, I can remember it again. Every time I see that sketch, I can remember exactly how the room was, exactly that. And, you know, if I'm sketching a cathedral or a temple or anything, you know, I'm looking at the ornamentation probably far more than most people ever will. I mean, if you go on a trip and, I don't care, you go to Paris and you go see the Notre Dame, like, most people are going to walk, they'll take a couple of pictures, and maybe they'll walk inside and they'll walk around and they leave. Like, if I'm sitting outside for an hour or 2 hours, like, really studying all of the structure, how many different arches, how many windows, like, is there a symbolic number to these windows? How are the figures lined up? Hopefully I'll have a pretty good sense of how it was made or what was important about the building by the time you finish.
If you had to describe your aesthetic in a nutshell.
It is traditionally representational. It does look like, hopefully, the thing it's supposed to look like. And I'm a narrative painter. I like to tell stories, like an author or anything else. I just get one image, and hopefully with a set of symbols and maybe a title. You have to assume that the title may not survive.
Right.
But like, okay, I need to do a good enough job like this. So I consider myself kind of like a storyteller. And then, especially recently, I really love, if you're painting with oil paint, I feel like you should really use it to its best degree. Oil paint has the ability to make texture, and so I consider myself also kind of a texture painter. You know, I like to, when I'm building up a face or highlights, I love to be able to lie twice, not just make, like, let's say there's a highlight in the face, but if you build it up and there's texture, you get a sculptural element.
Did you just say lie twice?
Yeah, because all paintings are a lie. You're taking a flat shape and you're trying to convince somebody it's a three-dimensional image of a person.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so every time I'm working on something, I like, by adding texture, like, I'm lying to the viewer twice.
I love that. Peter, I could talk to you all day. Your work and your process are fascinating. Thank you so much, and please keep working and stay here as long as you're happy.
Well, yeah, and honestly, thank you for coming and doing the interview. Like, I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the questions you ask.
Oh, well, thank you. For more information, visit peterlupkin.com.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by